Greetings everyone, this is Curtis, and today I want to talk about how Nestle is responsible for the Flint Water Crisis. There's been a lot of discussion lately about the Flint Water Crisis and how the people were poisoned, and it is really sad that the people of Flint were poisoned due to faulty pipes in the area and decisions that were made to switch the city from the Detroit River to the Flint River. It's incredibly sad, and thousands of kids are now being lead poisoned as a result, and will have lifelong disabilities, permanent brain damage, and a whole host of other health problems. It is a form of structural violence. Not violence where they're actually pulling a gun on you, but violence that's due to the very toxic capitalistic nature of our society. And it's incredibly sad that this had to happen to many of the people in Flint, a majority black town, primarily low income. And it is something that happens to blacks all the time. They are the biggest victims of lead poisoning. There are whole cities throughout the United States where there's lead in the soil, there's lead in the paint. There's universities which actually conduct research studies where they deliberately poison blacks with lead and then see what happens. This was actually done at Johns Hopkins in 1994. It's totally ridiculous, and this is another clear case of environmental racism. But I am reminded that Malcolm X said it best. He said you can't have racism without capitalism. So the Flint Water Crisis is not about racism. It is about capitalism. And the race factor was used to justify the capitalistic factor. In a sense, the fact that Flint was a majority black town and a majority poor black town, low income people, this was used to justify the decision to switch the city of Flint from the Detroit River to the toxic Flint River. And it was actually toxic because of all the road salt that they put in the highways, but that's another story. But this was not about the governor wanting to save money. This was about water privatization and about fracking. And I'll cover fracking in perhaps in another video, but I'm just going to focus on water privatization. The first thing you must realize is that there should not be any type of water crisis in Flint whatsoever. The city is surrounded by over a quarter of the world's remaining fresh water. They should not have any water crisis whatsoever. But the fact that they do is telling. It is telling because water is the new blue gold. Water is $1 trillion commodity being traded on Wall Street. There are bankers, corporations, and a whole host of multinational governments that are trading water, buying water, and stealing water. Water is a new commodity. People spend, hundreds of dollars a year just buying bottled water. And unbeknownst to most people, the world is running out of fresh water because of industrial capitalism and civilization. The greatest user of water throughout the world is agriculture, industrial agriculture, to produce tobacco, wheat, corn, soy, cotton, a whole host of products that we use on a consistent basis. As a matter of fact, California is actually sinking because all the nut farmers are literally draining all the aquifers in California to make almonds to be shipped over to China. So water is a huge commodity now. It is $1 trillion commodity, and the world is running out because fresh water only makes up like less than 1% of all the world's water. So it's a very precious and scarce commodity that Wall Street realizes now that, hey, we can make some money off this because it's being overused by us. It's being overused due to capitalism. It's being polluted by us. Nestle and some of these other major corporations are some of the top water polluters in the globe, and they actually, take all the fresh water, steal it, bottle it, and supposedly filter it, and then sell it back to the public at a 100% markup. 300% when they get the water for free. So the reason why, there is this water scarcity is because of capitalism. And capitalism now is going to profit off of the problem that they created, which is the exact same thing that they are doing in Flint right now. They are capitalizing off of the problem that they created. Now I'll provide links with further proof. But what you must know was that the decision to switch the Flint water source from the Detroit River to the Flint River was not about saving money. It was about water privatization. Because corporations and banks, Nestle, Goldman Sachs, all these big banksters, they want the Great Lakes. They want to own that because they have a quarter of the world's fresh water. So whoever owns that will literally dominate the whole water market that is currently out there. They will dominate it. And they'll be able to sell that water and ship it to China, which Nestle is doing right now. They are literally taking water from the Great Lakes and shipping it over to California, shipping it over to China, shipping it over to Europe. They're shipping it over to the highest bidder. And if you're some poor person in Flint, fuck you. You can't afford this water. Sorry. I'm gonna ship this over to China. I'm shipping this over to England. I'm shipping this over to California. I'm going where the money is. And you're poor and black living in Flint. Well, just drink that lead water. This fresh water is for the rich. And that's how it's going to go in the coming water wars, which the world is going to experience, where countries are going to be fighting wars over water. The United States has already waged a war over water when they bombed Libya, because Gaddafi had trillions of gallons of fresh water, which he wanted to get for free. And God forbid you actually want to give your citizens free fresh water. Oh, you're a socialist. You're just a devil incarnate. You must be killed and taken down, so we can privatize that water and then sell it for a 300,000% markup, as they're doing in Libya right now. So there were some emails which came out, which Governor Snyder stated that he wanted to privatize the Detroit municipal water system, which gets all their water from Lake Huron. He openly stated that. And he wanted to do this by cutting off one of the main customers for Detroit. So essentially he was trying to bankrupt the Detroit municipal water system so that he could privatize it. And that was done. This has already been done. They've already actually split up the Detroit municipal water system into two different systems, so then they can privatize it and sell it off to Wall Street and to corporations like Nestle. So essentially, that was the real reason why Flint was forced or told to switch their water supply to the toxic and corrosive Flint River, because Governor Snyder wanted to sell off the Detroit municipal water supply, which again is essentially the Great Lakes water. So whoever controls the Detroit municipal water supply controls the Great Lakes, because they get the water from the Great Lakes. So if a private company or bank can buy up that municipal water system, then they're essentially getting all the Great Lakes water, and then they could sell it for the highest bidder. Because a year before they had the Flint Water Crisis, you had a water crisis in Detroit where prices were just going through the roof. And that's what happens. Whenever these corporations privatize the water supply, the first thing that happens is that they actually ban rainwater, and that's something that's going on right now all throughout the United States. And people wonder why, big government's banning our water. The reason why they're banning it is because water's a commodity now, and the banks and the multinational corporations want to own water. They already do own water. So you trying to, have your own water to grow your own organic foods or vegetables or whatnot, that's cutting into the profits. So no, that has to be banned. And this is something that was actually done in the country of Bolivia. Once Bolivia actually got a World Bank loan, the first thing that happened is that they were forced to privatize their water supply. And when that happened, prices went through the roof. People start paying, almost $400, $300 water bills. And this is in Bolivia, where poverty rates are incredibly higher than they are in America. Much more people are poor in Bolivia than are in America, but the water bills went through the roof. And they also banned rainwater, and they used the government to crack down on protesters. The big banks and the multinational corporations did. And this was documented in the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Great book that I recommend everybody check out. But that's what happened in Bolivia in 2004. Was that, they got the country in debt, and they said, okay, well, since you're in debt and you can't afford to pay, really, you gotta sell us your water supply. And they did. They sold it off to a big engineering company by the name of Bechtel. Bechtel, raised the prices through the roof, banned rainwater, and, got the police state to kill off protesters who were actually, protesting the fact that their water supply was being stolen from them. And they were having to literally go into debt in order to pay their water bill. So the same thing was happening in Detroit close to about a year ago. People were getting their water turned off. Why? Because the Detroit municipal water system was being privatized. And it already has been privatized. It has been split up into two different entities, and it will eventually be sold off. So this whole emergency management thing has nothing to do with the cities being in bankruptcy. It has to do with corporations and banks wanting to privatize all the services within the city, so they could rake in more of the money and rake in more of the profits. So Flint, for example, had to privatize a whole host of their municipal services, and it was the goal essentially. It was the goal for Detroit to have to privatize their water supply as well. And again, this fits into Nestle's blueprint for how they're going to plan on taking over all of the world's water supply, because Nestle CEOs openly stated that water is not a human right. Human beings have no right to water. I guess, if you can't, which essentially means that, if you can't afford to pay for water, then you'll just die of thirst. And Nestle don't give a damn, because they're raking in, billions of dollars of profits and selling the water at a 300,000% markup. So essentially, they said you have no right to water, which is something that is essential. You cannot survive without for almost 7 days, which means, in stating that, they want to privatize the world's water supply and turn it into a commodity to sell. In order to do that, you have to own the water supplies. And that's why Nestle actually had one of their representatives, or they had ties to the Governor Snyder administration, because they knew, and they bribed Governor Snyder, here, give him a couple $1 million to privatize the Detroit water supply. In order to do that, you have to bankrupt the Detroit municipal water system. In order to do that, you have to force Flint to build their own water supply and deprive the Detroit municipal system of one of their biggest customers, to bankrupt them. And that's why the people in Detroit were experiencing extremely high water bills, because their water system was in the midst of being privatized. And the same exact thing happened in 2004 in Bolivia, as I stated before. So that's the name of the game. No reason. It makes perfect sense. You install a person who's connected with you into the Snyder administration. You bribe that politician to make sure that they privatize the water supply under the guise of fiscal responsibility and emergency management, which is a total fraud, because the governor actually put the cities, into financial distress and made them file bankruptcy in order so Wall Street and the big corporations can own literally everything within the city, and use the police state to essentially back up and enforce their rule and enforce their profits, and then being able to profiteer off of the cities, which is the exact same thing that happened in Bolivia. So essentially, you put in, you put in a puppet into administration. You bribe the governor. You tell the governor to privatize the water supply and to cut off the Detroit water system and to cut off the Flint water system from Detroit in order so you can bankrupt the Detroit municipal system. So then you can privatize and own all the water from Lake Huron. So then you can ship, you can do whatever you want with water. You can ship the water to fracking companies, nuclear reactors, the highest bidder. And if the residents can't afford to pay for this privatized water, just shut off the water. To hell with them and their kids. Give a fuck about them trying to make money. And you ship the water to China, you ship it to California, you ship it to the place which is willing to pay for it. Because you've already created a system of artificial scarcity by over pumping the water, which Nestle and all these other major corporations are currently doing. They're literally sucking the whole country and the world dry. They're pumping all the water out of all these aquifers, contributing to the water scarcity of the world that we're witnessing right now. So then you own a quarter of the world's water supply. So then you can dictate your price and rake in all the profits. So that's the true story of the Flint Water Crisis. It is caused by Nestle. Nestle caused the crisis. And it makes total sense for them to cause a crisis from a monetary perspective. Because then, once you get people drinking poison water, you get more bottled water sales. Because the governor has already announced that he is not going to fix the pipes. So what does that mean? People are going to have to buy more Nestle water. And Nestle is already pumping hundreds of millions of gallons of water in the Great Lakes for free. And is actually getting a tax break and a tax cut to the tune of $13 million to do so. So they're not paying any money to get the water from the ground. They're selling the water to the people of Flint at a 300,000% markup. And they're going to eventually own all the Great Lakes. Whew. That's what you call capitalism, ladies and gentlemen. It is a system of human eat human. Predatory slave market capitalism. That's the name of the game. And Nestle is responsible, not Governor Snyder. You can arrest Governor Snyder. That's not going to do a goddamn thing. You need to arrest capitalism. Until you do that, millions of people are going to continue to get poisoned by lead and by these other toxic chemicals. Because these corporations want that. They want for the water structure and the water infrastructure to continue to crumble, so they can privatize all these different water systems and jack up the prices, and then sell the water to the highest bidder, and literally deprive millions of people of safe drinking water, so then they can sell more bottled water, which is what they're doing in Flint right now. Nestle has deprived them of water. So now everyone's coming in. Oh, we gotta raise money for bottled water donations. Who's the biggest bottled water company on the planet? Nestle. Who wants to own the Great Lakes? Nestle. Who has connections to the Governor Snyder administration? Nestle. There you go. And I'll provide some links down below which you can look at. But that was the true reason why the city of Flint was forced off of the Detroit River, because Nestle wants to own the Great Lakes, and the Detroit municipal water system gets the water from the Great Lakes, and the bankers in Nestle want that water. That is a quarter of the world's fresh water supply. Again, there should be no Flint water crisis. They're right near, an hour away from a quarter of the world's fresh water, but yet they're drinking poison water and paying some of the highest prices for water on the planet. That's no accident. That is due to capitalism and the worldwide push for water privatization. So that's the real story of the Flint water crisis. It's totally driven by Nestle and all these other bottled water companies and banks. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening.